All right, we're live. Welcome, everyone who's viewing at home. I think we have a fun hour ahead of us. We have the guys from Breaking Bourbon. I'm Jordan, along with Nick and Eric. And we have Chris from Traverse City Whiskey, some TC whiskey representation here. We're going to be picking a single barrel. Blake may or may not be making it. He's running a little bit late, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun sipping through and tasting through everything. So before we kick off, Chris, do you just want to give a little background on Traverse City and who you guys are?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for asking, and thanks for having me. So Traverse City Whiskey, I'm an owner, co-founder, one of our distillers. We started producing whiskey about 10 years ago, and we're based in Northern Michigan. We're a distillery that has decided to focus only on whiskey. We had the pleasure of meeting Nick now a couple years ago, and we've dabbled with this idea of kind of a private barrel selection for about a year now, and we've done one barrel. Here's another, and that's just a very brief overview. But we're excited to share the ware.
Yeah, so that first barrel, so for those that don't remember, so this was actually Blake and I were out at Traverse City Whiskey Company. We spent a couple days out there, and so we ended up picking what ended up being the very first Traverse City Whiskey distilled rye. It's a barrel proof rye, and actually it was right at the barrel house there, TC2. As if you learn about Traverse City Whiskey Company, kind of the school like TC1, TC2, and soon to be TC3 designations for the different buildings. But so we had 8 that we started with, 4 bourbons, 4 ryes. We narrowed it down, didn't know what was what. And then after we selected, we found out that it was kind of a mix of sourced and Traverse City Whiskey Company distilled. And it was the very first that they distilled. So this time, because we had done the rye before, so we shifted to bourbon. And actually, this is round 2 of pick 2, I guess. So the first round, we started with a whole bunch of samples and got it down to our favorite 3. And now we're picking from those favorite 3. So probably narrowing it down from a bigger group than usual as far as sample selection goes.
Yeah, for sure. So this will be really fun. So this is a pick that's going to go for Breaking Bourbon Single Barrel Club. And should we just dive right in? Should you give us any background on these barrels now, Chris? Or you want us to taste through them and talk about them and then maybe reveal a little bit as we go?
Yeah, let's taste through them. In the reprocessing of the samples, we have shared a treat with you guys, or I guess we're considering a treat, kind of a curveball. And I'm excited to see how our noses and palates kind of tease out that unique sample. But
So
there were
go ahead.
there were 2 samples during our last pick that we mutually, like as a group, kind of agreed were great, and those are still here. And there's one curveball included in the mix that we'll see if we pick it out. Maybe we enjoy and appreciate what we liked before. And that's great, and that's fine. Maybe there's more to it. We'll see.
And we don't know what's what either. So we picked those 3 before. We don't know with these 3. We don't know which of those 2 is coming from that original group. Chris is testing us, right? So I haven't tried these yet. I don't know about you guys.
No, I haven't either. And we'll start at the nose. They're all completely different.
Yeah.
Yep.
Widely different.
So where do you guys want to start?
Well, let's talk about mash bill a little bit. Are they all the same mash bill? Are they all different?
Yep, they're all the same mash bill.
Okay.
2 of the 3 have a different cooper. One is a unique cooperage, but the char is the same. And that's all I care to reveal.
Fair enough. I'm assuming, do you have a favorite out of these three, Chris, or each one's special in their own way?
Each is special in their own way. Thanks for asking such an open-ended question.
Just teeing you up there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all good. They're all actually really good. Like Eric said, different noses on all three of these. And different in this case is not bad. Different is literally just different.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we want to focus on what, most importantly, what you guys enjoy. But frankly, it's, teasing out the just hyper specific characteristics that are, appreciated by the palate. That's what matters.
Yeah. All right. So while we're going through and tasting these, Chris, and tasting some notes, we talked about it a little bit last time, but you actually sent us samples this time, and they're really good. We started to crack open. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your new seltzer line that you guys released? Because that was really interesting.
So what I failed to mention on our last chat is that it's pre-released.
Pre-released.
So
okay, sorry.
I got a nice slap on the wrist from our publicist who was like, "You're not talking about that yet."
Oops. All right, so maybe I'll change that question then for you.
Inside scoop right here, though, right? That's the idea.
Yeah. He's like, "We're not talking about that yet," and yet it was on the Breaking Bourbon social media. I got in trouble, but no, it's we've produced a seltzer. It's a traditional. It's a take on a traditional highball, so whiskey and soda. There's three varieties. One is the original, which is whiskey and soda with a dash of bitters, and the second is whiskey and soda with a dash of cherry essence, and then the third is whiskey soda with a dash of citrus, so a blend of lemon and lime. Did the three of you try them?
I just had a citrus last night myself.
Lovely.
I just had the cherry so far.
Yeah.
What was there one that, I guess amongst the group, one that spoke to you or was enjoyable or?
No, I'll put it this way. I wasn't sure everyone's had hard seltzer. That seems to be all the rage lately. So I wasn't sure what to expect out of a whiskey seltzer, but I was actually really pleased. It was really easy to drink. It was something I'd reach for in a heartbeat on a hot summer day or like a springtime day because it was just so simple. And I was appreciative of the fact that there's whiskey representation in this space versus just doing like a White Claw or something like that. It was really fun to actually see, whiskey on the, real whiskey being included in the seltzer, which was great. And tasted good too. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah. So I do. One of my shticks as a whiskey nerd. So I guess I'm just going to be transparent here.
Yeah.
I enjoy White Claw.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I do. During the summer, going out to the beach or on the boat or whatever that looks like, it's always so easy to just grab a hard seltzer and indulge. And one of the goals with this project, the Highball series from TC Whiskey, was to kind of authenticate almost like a more masculine version of a White Claw. White Claw just being the example, but I wanted to dip into the cooler and grab something that wasn't, call it like a vodka soda. Something that was a little, I don't know. As a guy who likes whiskey, I don't want to be drinking not a beer or a whiskey. So why not try to combine these two groups and marry them in a way that promotes a very traditional, like century-old cocktail, the whiskey highball. I like the original with a flavor. Less is more for me. I just like a whiskey soda. It hits the spot. It's refreshing. It's so easy to drink.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I just had the cherry version so far. I definitely say it was easy to drink. It went down very quickly, and it was that same cherry flavor that's in the cherry whiskey, that kind of like not overly sweet, type of flavor. Like definitely a natural cherry flavor in that sense. I didn't feel like it was hyper sweetened. and really, I'd say I didn't really feel like there was much alcohol. I didn't taste the alcohol per se, so
Right.
I could, and I agree with you that there's times, especially like this past summer, it was a really hot summer. I was outside quite a bit. You don't feel like necessarily reaching for a beer all the time, and you're not going to necessarily sip, whiskey all the time either. So then,
Right.
okay, are you making a cocktail? What are you drinking exactly? And I'm not somebody that reaches for White Claw. It's just not, something I've bought before, or really thought to buy before. But I definitely see that, in this space, and I see that idea of kind of us, incorporating the whiskey with a drink that you don't necessarily think is, it is in tune with that, and kind of drawing a crowd of people that might, give a hard seltzer a try that wouldn't otherwise think to do that, and I would say I'm in that group of people that I probably wouldn't have thought to do that, but now whiskey's involved. I'm seeing that suddenly I'm like, yes, hard seltzer. Maybe that's something I'd like to try, and maybe it's something I'd like to drink, especially during the warm months.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I'm glad you guys had the chance to try it out, because it's our V1, as I like to call it. Anytime we pilot a product like this, it's you always just got to get it to market and hear the feedback. And if there's flaws, we fix them. If there's not, we get good feedback. We invest, we double down and figure it out.
And what markets will those be available in, Chris? That's just a Michigan only product, or?
Yeah, great question. It's something that we're rolling out semi-nationally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've right now in the whiskey world, we're very governed by distribution. So when you, as a distillery, whenever we want to enter a new market or a new state, we can only partner with one distributor per state, and just from a compliance standpoint, it's a pretty big deal. It's a marriage.
Yep.
And working with a lower ABV product, so the highballs are 5% ABV. We're still learning the category, and it seems to be a bit. It creates more accessibility to a larger market faster than being so regimented with, we're going to this state with this distributor with these products, and it's a very specific highway for funneling the traffic. But with a lower ABV product, we're beginning to understand that there's an easier route to market. So, the goal is to go nationally pretty quickly, but we'll see how that works out.
So you're going to be basically like, this is going to be competing with the jars of cherries for like, what's the most popular, like crazily sold Traverse City Company product, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Those cherries are absolutely fantastic. I mean, probably most people, have had Luxardo cherries, and, obviously very popular, very, really high-end cherry. The Traverse City Whiskey Company cherries are in that same, line, but they're, as far as a high-end cocktail cherry like that, but it's definitely a different taste, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but aren't you guys selling more than they are at this point? Have you surpassed what Luxardo is selling on Amazon?
Wow.
On Amazon, maybe. Yeah. There's been some interesting trade movements in the last year that has made the cocktail cherries a more popular domestic product. To keep it, in-house, in-country, it's created it's created a slightly less competitive environment for us to react in. Up until 3 years ago, Luxardo was the name in cocktail cherry. I mean, that was it. It was like, if you want a premium garnish for your Manhattan or old fashioned or whatever it might be, that was it, and, being Traverse City up in Northern Michigan is the cherry capital of the world. And, we need to stand for something. And that is like the cherry is the lifeblood. It's like the DNA of Traverse City. So, if you're all about importing and, working with a product from another country and supporting that, more power to you. But for those that are looking to, really support a local producer, and cherries are one thing that Traverse City as a city, but also a region. I mean, it's not just Traverse City; it's all of northern Michigan. Does really well is cherries. So yeah, it's been a fun ride this year.
Always good. So I'm tasting through all three of these. Definitely different. I think I got my idea of maybe one that I'm trying to remember from last time. I think it's probably the one that Blake had keyed in on that I didn't try. Eric, you want to kind of go through like what you're tasting so far? And sure. I know you were talking about the noses being very different on each of them.
Yeah, so let's start with the lowest number here, 555. So that's my first one. I feel like that one is a little bit not the most unique, but unique out of the three. So what I mean by that is it's kind of I feel it's the fruitier, kind of cherry, a little medicinal flavored. And then the other two I think are a little bit similar, but then I guess, I don't know, I'm still going back and forth here, but 558, the second one, I feel like that is a lot more unique overall. So I'm kind of going really back and forth between those two. And the last one, 562, I guess is my least favorite right now.
Funny, I was kind of the same way. It was, and not that 562 is bad, it's just 558 and 555 kind of pushed it to the back out of the three. And I keep going back and forth debating whether like 555 or 558 a little better. And the noses on both of these are fantastic in my book. It's just really great noses. I keep going back and I enjoy sipping them, but man, are these just really good noses.
Yeah, I really like the nose on 555.
Oh man,
it's just really fruity.
Good.
Yeah, I same thing. I picked up cinnamon on that one too with the nose on 555. And I agree with you. I was same kind of light, 562. I mean, I think they're all good. 562, I feel like is standing out the least of the three, just by direct comparison here. It's very drinkable. Definitely getting some spice, some honey. It's got balance. 562 definitely has balance, but then I think as you move into 558 and 555, you're getting some more unique, more memorable notes as compared with 562. Definitely the most expressive nose on 555 for sure.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sipping on right now. It's lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those bourbons where people are going to enjoy drinking them, but boy, they're going to enjoy sitting there with a glass and just smelling this for a long time. These noses.
Yeah.
And both these are great, but these noses are fantastic.
I think you get a little more potency, a little more spice, a little more in a number of different areas on 555 compared to 558. 558, I feel like I'm getting some interesting kind of funk on the back end by comparison. Seems to sit a little fatter on the tongue. 558 does than 555. I think that's the kind of the spice comparison a little bit. It's not popping much.
See, I think I might like the palates and finish are pretty close to me in my book. I kind of think I might lean that towards 558 a little bit, and the nose on 555. Man, that nose on 555 is damn good.
It's so different.
Yeah.
It's amazing how, I mean, so two of these, all three of them are the same mash bill. Two of them are the same age. One of them is a different age.
So what's the mash bill, Chris? What are we dealing with?
Yep. Here? The mash bill is 71% corn, 21% rye, and 4% malted barley.
Okay. Well,
And 555's got a little like creme brulee too on the nose. It's just
so I think we pretty much between the. I mean, I think it's unanimous among the three of us. I think 562 probably is going to get shoved to the side. That's not gonna make it. It's going to end up being 555 or 558. But let's talk about 562 for a second. So the one that we're not going to go with for sure. What's the age on it? Just a little bit of details if you can, anything like that.
So
was that your wild card?
That was the wild. That is the wild card. Yeah. That is a. You guys ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
yeah.
So the reveal, that is a 2012 MGP 21% rye bourbon.
Huh.
So is that the oldest of the group?
It is.
9.
No kidding.
Yeah. That's the wild card.
It's a good example of older not necessarily being better
I was
either.
going to say that, Nick. Yep.
Yeah, and so Nick, I think when you guys were in house, I think we rolled out some older ryes as well, and both you and Blake tasted around age and tasted just your favorite. And doing the blind tasting, you guys ended up with the 5-year at the time. It was a 5-year, our 100% rye, up against, I think it was 2014 and maybe 2012 95.5 MGP rye. So it's just another example of, don't rely on the stats, rely on your palate, rely on your nose. But yeah, so that's you guys have 562. Yep.
Interesting.
And that one, as far as you said, cooperages were varied too between these.
Yep. So the sample 562 is independent stave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And see, it's a good example too for those watching along at home. When you do a barrel pick, if you have the opportunity to do a barrel pick, get as little information as possible when you go and taste these whiskeys. I mean, you really don't want it. All you want to know is, am I tasting a bourbon? Am I tasting a rye? Or am I just tasting an American whiskey? And that's all you really want to know. And truly pick it based on the flavor profile versus, you don't want to pick the oldest. You don't want to pick the highest proof. You just want to pick what tastes the best. And that's why when we're tasting these barrels, and Blake would say the same thing, try and do them as blind as possible, right? Because then you take all the bias out that you may be going after, and you're just going after pure flavor profile.
Yep. And we've had so many picks in house, and we're just the supplier, we're just the producer. It's we don't have a dog in the fight, but there's been so many times that different groups have catered to age instead of what they truly enjoy.
Yep.
And with experienced palates, like yours, it's like focus on what's important, which is what you enjoy. You don't want to be sipping something and talking about how old it is, but not talking about how great it is.
No one ends up wanting to buy a barrel and then be like, oh, I got a barrel of whiskey that I'm just okay fan of, but I picked it because it sounded good on paper. You don't want that. You want to use, something you want to drink.
So as I'm tasting these, I'm definitely 558 is opening up a little more. On the nose, so is 555. I just picked up some cinnamon bun on the nose. I wasn't getting that before, like not just cinnamon, but kind of like that cinnamon bun sweetness. The nose is just, it's just an absolutely fantastic nose on 555. It kind of keeps giving you a little something more. So watch us pick the one that Blake. But if we pick Blake and he's not here, we just have to pick the other one. We can't let him hold that over us. Yeah, we'll lie. We'll tell him it wasn't him.
Tell him. Yeah, it'll be his, but we just won't tell him it's his.
Yeah.
Man, that nose on 555 may just win the whole thing for me. It is such a good nose.
Yeah, not to say it.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I really love the palate on 558, but this nose on 555 is just It's one of those bourbons that you can sit down and you can really just milk it and enjoy it for a long time just by appreciating the nose and just sitting there and doing it, which that's a rarity sometimes. Ooh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. It's just a creamy, great nose. So, Chris, are we dealing with the 2 remaining barrels? Are we dealing with similar ages on these?
They're all similar ages.
We got same mash bill, almost same age then, and
Yep.
they're completely different.
Yep, they're all very similar in age, very similar in char, identical mash bill, and just so the division is time and char, really. 2 of them have different coopers. One of them is the same. Well, I don't want to give away too much, but yeah. They're.
So, I'm assuming the distillery is the same on both of these?
Yes.
Okay.
And the aging component for all of them, and I just talked about this at length on a podcast, and it was the first time I visited this in a while, but we were talking a lot about aging location, and I don't focus on it as much. I mean, we do it kind of instinctively. Anything that we tease out as being good enough to be a single barrel gets racked high. Anything that's going to be blended in, like the bourbon or the cherry or the rye, gets racked not at the top. But somebody asked me yesterday, the day before, what location the barrel was in, and I guess I don't think about it as much because we organically just rack everything at the top that we know is going to be seasoned better, in a higher location. So it's good, and we're like, can you be better? We'll just put it up high. And up in northern Michigan, we have 4 very distinct seasons. There's a lot of fluctuation of temperature, climate. Our relative humidity is very high, and we get a lot of temperature swing. And of course, of swing, you get more expansion and contraction of the spirit in the wood. And so if you had good flavor to begin with, you're going to get even better flavor at the end of the aging process. And so all these are all racked, bung up, top row, and then it just allows us to go through and sample quickly, efficiently, and also lets them age the way they were designed to be aged. Hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold.
Chris, when you get these source barrels, what age are you typically getting the barrel at, and then how long is it aged in your rick house versus when you acquired it on average? Yeah,
great question. It's the industry has changed so much since we started the company. This went from an environment of there was only a few players in the game. If you wanted something that was a little bit older than you would just invest and you would find it and you'd buy it and stash it away. Fast forward to today, if you were looking for a 7 or 8 or 10-year-old or 12-year-old MGP bourbon barrel, good luck.
Yeah.
Where are you gonna find it? It doesn't exist. I mean, if anybody has it, they hold on to it and they share it for moments and events like this. Like, that's the point. Most of the whiskey in our warehouse right now has been with us since we opened TC2, and that was in 2015. So it's been in Traverse City for at least 5 years. And we have these racks that we don't touch. I mean, that are just, have been patiently waiting for, to come of age and be bottled. And then we have our transient racks or pallets, depending on the palate and the style barrel. You know, everything older than 2015, everything before that was, how do you say it? Side fill, right? Like, so like a traditional whiskey barrel with a bung that's on the horizontal layer of the barrel. And then after, in 2016, the cooperage had started to change kind of their program, and for 2 years introduced top fill barrels. And so you go from racks to palletizing and all that. But it's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but we have both barrels that have been aging in racks and on pallets, but anything this old have been racked.
So that's interesting, because that's going to start to become kind of like a stat that people are going to, question or look at is, was it aging outside or was it standing up? I think it's not really something that's being questioned so much at this point. I mean, you're certainly seeing that trend to it, but I don't think it's being identified and specifically talked about. But I think as it fleshes out in the industry, you're going to start, and I think too, as single barrels, and you typically get more information when it is a single barrel.
100%.
You're going to start to see people actually talk about that and talk about, comparisons like that. It's interesting too, because, as you guys go through, even just selecting the source stuff, from years ago, it would have been aged, maybe predominantly at MGP or wherever it's sourced from. Whereas now you're seeing the majority of the age actually occurred in Traverse City, in that climate and in the conditions of, your rick house, for example. So you're actually seeing that where you're starting to develop your own, unique flavor profile that's going to be imparted on sourced whiskey. And that's something I think Eric has started to, identify and talk about more too, about that, idea of, even if it is sourced, where is it aging for, when did it move from the source to, to the producer who acquired the barrel, and how long did it spend in that climate, in those conditions, and so forth. And it's starting to be so many variables, trying to keep track of and identify, but you're going to start to see these diverging flavor profiles, even of, say, something from MGP that, it's MGP, but if it's, going to Traverse City versus going out to Texas versus going out to, Washington, for example, that if it's aging most of its life in a different place, you've got not only a different mash bill, different barrel maker, all those, but you've got a different location, completely a different state, different conditions. That's going to become a huge variable in the mix of just MGP sourced, in that greater scheme. So I think we're finally starting to see those things come out as, we're aging these things out, and we're getting into that kind of 5-6+ year, range of where things have been out at these different producers in different states for such a long time.
Absolutely. And I will preface this comment by saying that everything that we're tasting right now is side fill. So it's a traditional whiskey barrel. Okay. But the fun fact for those that are not totally keen on the difference between a top fill and a side fill aging, like the aging component of it, we have noticed, and we have heard and read many studies that top fill barrels are at a minimum 6 months to a year behind side fills. Huh. And there's from a producer standpoint, top fill barrels are great because you can palletize them, and the bung is up, and it's, from a cubic space perspective, it's great. I mean, I love it. We love it. It's just easy. However, there is a cost benefit, and so many of the barrels that we have, and we don't have that many, but for the ones that we do have, there's just less wood exposure, and because of that, they're just, the aging process is not it's not what you'd expect. It's not what you'd hope for from any barrel. It works for some products, but it's, frankly, the old world recipe of 53 gallons, side fill, medium to heavy char. Yeah, it works, and there's a reason it works.
All right, so I think as we keep on talking, I think I narrowed down my final choice. So do you guys have a favorite between the two? I think we'll just go with majority on this one.
I think so.
I'd be willing to talk about them a little more. I think they're two. I think it's what we identified, and then we can kind of just cast a vote.
All right, so I'm gravitating. My vote's going to go towards 555. That's where I'm gravitating towards. I think the nose really pulls me in. I think the palate on 558 is really good and unique, but 555 just all around. I just keep going back to it. I keep smelling it. I keep tasting it. It's good. It is just a rich, delicious nose. The palate's really good. It's easy to sip on. It's incredibly pleasing. I don't know. What do you guys think of the other two?
Go ahead, Eric.
I'm leaning towards 5552. Man, it's tough. I've been leaning towards that the most. I like 558. It's really interesting. I think 555 I'd like to drink a lot of.
Yeah.
And like you want to keep coming back to it. It's a really enjoyable drinker. I think the other one challenges you a little bit more, for good or bad. It's quite the opposite. It's just less fruity. It's a little more nutty. It's a little more just different things going on. And and there's certain times I like that when I'm sipping for something. But I think 555 just has so much more going on, just all around, from the nose, palate, finish, than the other one.
Yeah, I think I was taking some more notes as I was just going back and forth between the two. 555, definitely a better nose, hands down, no question. It's a really interesting, unique nose. Really worth talking about. It's got a lot going on. I think much more so than on average you find with the bourbon. More spice. I am getting some heavy spice on the back end too. So you get kind of a robust flavor. So with the palate and finish, definitely a little more heavier towards the spice by comparison to 558. 558, hands down, less interesting nose, but like Jordan mentioned, the palate and finish is really good. It's not as spice heavy as 555. It's something I could probably drink a lot of quickly, I think. But overall, I think 558 is a less interesting bourbon than 555. I think 555, you're getting a more interesting bourbon. I've written a lot more about that one than any of the others. So that tells me that there's something more going on with it. Between the two, it's do you want this one? Do you want that one? I wrote down a tale of two bourbons. I'm thinking of like a tale of two cities. I'm like, it's kind of like two different bourbons, both good, but both kind of very different in how they're, delivering. So I think I would be on 555 too, just for the fact that it's the one that stood out the most in the beginning, and it's the one that continues to stand out right now.
I think we got a winner. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that barrel, Chris?
Yes.
So first,
Which one did you think we were going to go with? Did you have an idea?
I didn't have an idea. First of all, the lineup is unique. So you have each piece is really the reaction is dependent on the drinker. So it's first of all, it's cool to hear that you guys are so unified in that response. That's great. I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that regardless of the age that you're excited about this one, and that's fantastic. I didn't know. You never know. I've personally tried to steer so many people, away from, like, don't even ask about the age. Let's talk about the character. For me, the experience is in the nose. Like that's where I grab so much of my opinion on anything. And I think for me, the nose on this one stood out. It's dynamic, it's fun. And then frankly, between the two, if I were to tailor, like if you were to narrow down what two are great, I think these two are awesome. And what really stood out for me is the taste. Super long finish, and it like lingers and sticks around and is lovely. So aromatics, great. And then the just significantly longer taste. Excuse me, significantly longer finish. But yeah, so this is a again 75 corn, 21% rye, 4% malted barley, traditional Indiana mash bill. Number 4 char. It's a 2014 MGP bourbon. So a little bit younger, but more dynamic, and it's lived approximately the same life as the older one that we tried earlier. But it's it's a different snapshot in time. It's a different. Yep. I don't know if it's a different forest, but it's a different selection of wood, of course, and same grains, same recipe, same everything, but that much more dynamic, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's. I mean,
was that independent stave as well? That one, Chris?
Actually, the 14, I have it labeled as ISC, but I know that it's Calvin, Calvin Cooperage, yep. Which is nearby, but different. Yeah, so it's different Cooper, same char, but it's different wood, but it makes I don't know, it makes a pretty big difference.
A huge difference in a really good way.
Yeah. Yep.
What was the year of the 558?
So this actually was just a progression. So 12, 13, 14.
Okay, interesting.
Okay. So we picked the youngest one. So it's 6 years and change.
Yep.
I think that just goes to show you age does not mean everything when you're picking a bourbon, because this definitely was by far and large. Although once you hit 6 years, you're
yeah, it can go either way.
Yeah. Delicious. So this
it goes from most to least interesting. I would definitely say that.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's just more going on with that one. And so more age has pulled it back, tapered it, in that sense, mellowed it in a way where, in this case, not being quite as mellow is a good thing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's like more pronounced character almost.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. This has been, so we're going to go with 555. I think it's going to be a fantastic a barrel. So for those watching, if you're interested, it'll be part of the Breaking Bourbon Single Barrel Club. Go to breakingbourbon.com, click on Single Barrel, find out how you can become a member and get a bottle for yourself. It's going to be distributed through Seelbach, of course, right? So we always love working with Blake and Seelbach. And we're super excited.
Was it Blake's barrel?
Oh, good question. I don't.
Nick, you remember?
We don't.
I don't, because the numbering was different, so we're not sure of the number of the comparison.
So no, it wasn't Blake's barrel.
I should say it wasn't Blake's barrel.
To be fair, I'm personally going to pour just a hair out and sample this, and cheers to Blake, who wasn't able to be here tonight.
We'll cheers to Blake on that one.
Yeah.
But no, this is a really good barrel. So this was really, really good to taste through all three. And I think, like we said, age isn't everything. And again, for those watching, if you ever get a chance to do a barrel pick, please make sure you have zero details going into it. You just want to be picking on flavor profile. Because if we had gone in based on age only, we clearly would have missed what we consider the best of the bunch, which would have been a shame. And do we know what proof this is too, by the way, Chris?
Yeah, it'll be between probably 115 and 120.
Okay, good. Well, that drink's a lot lower than that, I thought, too. So it wasn't that bad, which is really good.
Yeah, it's a good thing though too. It's definitely robust, but it's in that range where I think it's not like burning your mouth range, where it's going to appeal to a wider a wider audience.
I think anyone who gets the bottle is going to be very, very pleased. So
Agreed.
this has been really fun. We always enjoy working with you, Chris. I think you guys are putting out some fantastic products. I think for those who haven't had a chance to have Traverse City whiskey out, do yourself a favor, go out and try them. Right, all their whiskey has been really, really great. Nick has a really nice write-up on BreakingBourbon.com of his experience down at Traverse City. We've taken notes on a number of their whiskeys, and the last barrel that we did with them was fantastic, and it went really quick. So I'm assuming this one will go the same way. But it's a really good bourbon. So it's always a pleasure to work with you, Chris, and to pick one of your bourbons from your distillery.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
It's fun.
You too.
Yeah.
Always is.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to let those watching at home know about Traverse City that might be coming out, or just that you guys have in the pipeline, or just in general your thoughts on what's going on at the distillery?
Yeah, just one thing. We're about a year delayed. Nick, when you were in town, we were talking about TC3 and what was going to become of that project. So TC1 is our still house and cocktail bar downtown Traverse City. We distill and we serve cocktails there. That's kind of our flagship location. TC2 is our current production facility where we age and bottle everything. And TC3 is what will become the largest family-owned distillery north of Kentucky this year, hopefully. Everything was planned for last year and pandemic hit and plans got derailed. But our intention at this point is to break ground in May or June of 2021. And we are working diligently to create a very humble and approachable whiskey experience. And so if you find yourself in Michigan, please come make the trek, knock on our door, email me, cf@tcwhiskey.com. Come say hi. We love to share what we're doing, share everything about it, and talk through every part of the process. We love to host, we love friends, we love family, and if you're listening to this, you're probably it. So that's all I have.
It's a super charming area. I mean, just Traverse City took me by surprise. It's like a place I never would have thought of. I mean, small airport, okay, get here. It's a pretty small airport. I'm used to that from Syracuse. But then you get there and you're like, wow, this is how has this not been discovered yet? How did I not know about this kind of thing? Mm-hmm. It's definitely a place where having been there once now, you're like, okay, I'm ready to go back again. It's definitely just a great spot. I'm super excited for TC3. Definitely very fond memories at TC1, hanging out there when we were out there for the visit. So really looking forward to TC3 coming on board here.
The boy band of the North.
There you go.
Whiskey of the North.
With that, right? Cheers, everybody.
All right. Yeah.
Cheers. Thanks for tuning in all. Thanks, Chris.
All right.
Take care. Good night, everybody.
Night, guys.